Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to bring you a PLE predictions video, this time for SummerSlam, which is set to take place this Saturday and Sunday, August 1st and 2nd, the second two-night SummerSlam. Per usual, and similar to that of Mania, SummerSlam is now a two-day event, so we're going to break up our predictions into a night per. So this will be a night one SummerSlam predictions video. Otherwise, I think the video would just be a little too long. Per usual, we're going to go through every single match that's to take place on SummerSlam night one and predict who we think will come out on top and give you our thoughts on each match and just the general card as a whole for the evening. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the opening contest of the evening, which again, these are in order that just makes sense, not necessarily the order that has been announced yet. The first match of the evening has Femi going up against Brock Lesnar in a Hell in a Cell match. KP, what are your thoughts on this one? Who do you have coming out on top?
Yeah, this one stems back to WrestleMania. Obviously, earlier this year, we had the original meeting of Femi and Brock Lesnar over there, and the sort of fake retirement angle from Brock Lesnar at that time never really sort of had us convinced. I think it's fair to say we were both sort of skeptical and doubtful about that. I think that probably has a bit more weight after this match, though, because obviously this is in Minnesota. This is the hometown of Lesnar. So generally speaking, if someone's going to have their final match, it probably is going to be in front of the hometown if they can make that possible. So with that being the case here, I think this is probably the right time to have Lesnar probably see this one as his last outing, which obviously you and I both are pretty much hoping for in the end here. But what we're also hoping for, and I'm pretty sure you're on the same wavelength as I am, is that he goes out putting someone over, and obviously he did that at WrestleMania. I'm hoping that it's going to happen here again at SummerSlam. So Hell in a Cell matchup. This could be one of the shortest Hell in a Cell matches in history, I think. You don't have a long match with Lesnar, do you? It doesn't tend to be more than about 5 or 6 minutes at a push. So this one probably will be quite physical from the get-go, straight up out the gates and just kind of brutal to begin with, which will probably just then end pretty quickly as well, I would imagine. Obviously with the the physiques of both men, it's probably going to be very, very extreme in terms of a very quick fire matchup. But I'm hoping Femi will win. I think Oba makes sense to get the victory here, because then he can take this matchup, this victory, move on from there, go on something fresh and new, have no distractions anymore, and then obviously he can weigh up what he's doing afterwards. This is obviously the King of the Ring winner who didn't get his championship matchup. This is in place of that, because of the incredible creative decisions that went into that display. So maybe after that we'll then see Oba go into that sort of title, position. I don't know, maybe perhaps, but it could happen. So I think it doesn't make any sense for Femi to lose, so got to go over to win. What about you, Nick? Who have you got in our opening matchup here, this Hell in a Cell match between Femi and Lesnar?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up the King of the Ring bit because yeah, this man won the King of the Ring, was supposed to be in a title match at this event, but instead has decided to forego that opportunity for Brock Lesnar. So make of that what you will. I genuinely do not see any reason for Oba to lose this match. Doesn't mean that, WWE may not find a way to do so, but same as I said on Monday Night Raw's recap, let's just hope this is the last time we see Brock on weekly television. So um, this is hoping, wishing that WWE makes the right decision, continues the elevation of Obafemi, the ruler. He gets the win here, and that is the last we see of Brock. So wishful thinking there, but this is probably the most confident pick I have for the evening, Oba to win here. The next match of the evening has a continued rivalry, this time with a slightly different variation, of course. We have Fatal Influences, Jacy, Jayne, Fallon, Henley, and Lainey Reid going up against Paige and Brie Bella, and of course, a returning Nikki Bella. KP, who you got coming out on top of this one of the 25th version of this match?
But this time it's different because it's 3 versus 3, not 2 versus 2 or 1 versus 1. We got an extra person per team getting involved in the matchup here. This is something that obviously has been on the cards for quite a long time now, right? We're obviously anticipating the return of Nikki Bella for a large period, and just coming back very recently. I think this one has a clear direction for me personally. We've just had Lainey, Reid, and Fallon, Henley win the tag team championships. So, in my opinion, momentum is with them. We need to keep that momentum moving and rolling forward. Obviously, championships aren't on the line here, which, does sort of like remove that sort of title essence to it. But in my opinion, I think that the perfect way of going about this one is to have Jacy, Lainey, and Fallon win against the Bellas and Paige. And then afterwards, like, I felt like before WrestleMania, going back now to when Nikki got injured, they were sort of, the Bella Twins especially here, they were on sort of like a, almost like a heel side of things. They were showing sort of like traits and personality elements of that. So I think that the plan probably was for them to be a heel tag team and to be the tag team champions together. Obviously, Nikki getting injured, they had to pivot and go to Paige instead. But I think this opens up a great opportunity where Nikki can basically just start sort of like after their loss here, maybe blaming it on Paige, take her frustrations out on her, essentially turning heel on Paige. Then Brie sort of sides with her sister over her friend, and then that sort of then puts Paige on a singles run. Then we could possibly bring in AJ Lee afterwards, and that could be a 2-on-2 thing from there on, maybe going back to feels like it's like 2014 all over again here. But that's just something in my head that I've sort of like envisioned from this whole thing. So I just think Fatal Influence have a great opportunity here to get a win, move on, and then obviously the other three can start things up between themselves. So that's just my theory. It might be completely bonkers and out of the out of complete imagination here, but that's just what I think is possibly going to happen from this whole situation. So Fatal Influence to win on this 3 versus 3 tag team match. What about you, Nick? What do you think? And what do you rate about the theories I presented? Do you kind of agree with that, or do you think maybe I'm thinking a bit too much?
Perhaps this entire predictions video is ran off wishful thinking, but I'm going to join you in that this wish here. Similar to the first match, there is a team that absolutely should be the winners here, and that, of course, is Fatal Influence. This is kind of the same sentiment I was pushing for Friday's recap, and that is Fatal Influence needs to win here and quickly remove themselves from the situation. As you well know, I think Brie and Paige's reign went a little too long for my liking, and Fatal Influence's momentum has kind of been derailed, not completely derailed, but definitely took a couple side stops there. And I just think there's better served rivalries for them. It's very similar to you. I thought when Nikki came back, just returned, I thought maybe she was just going to go straight heel. I didn't think they were going to do the team. So it does feel like, and you mentioned a great point too, when she did come back initially, they were kind of picking and choosing. One night they feel like a more heel faction. The next they feel like they went back to a face. So it was very pick and choose. So it was a strange dynamic. But I have no issues with Paige and going, on a feud with the Bella Twins and bringing back AJ Lee. I'm all for that. I love that. As long as they're not kind of holding down a title that kind of feels like the only way they can win is roll up. So yeah, if we can just move on from all of that, I think that's great. I love the idea of bringing back the 2014 vibe, if you will. But yeah, Fatal Influence continues to win here, continues their momentum, and then hopefully we can reimagine a women's tag team that once was truly great. So yeah, Fatal Influence to win here for me as well. The next match of the evening and seemingly has another very obvious winner, but we have to go through these. We have to talk about who we think will win and who should win, because sometimes those are different options. Of course, we have Gunther, ring general, going up against Nick Aldis, the former SmackDown GM, who has signed a contract to no longer be SmackDown GM, so we can have this match, and WWE is not liable for whatever injuries that Nick Aldis may and probably will experience. So, KP, what do you make of this? Who do you have coming out on top?
I've seen a lot of mixed sort of views ahead of this matchup at SummerSlam. This is probably one of the matches that I'm most intrigued by in the entirety of the event in terms of both nights. Gunther and Nick Aldis is a bit of a strange one for me because obviously, like you've already mentioned, you've got the fact that Nick Aldis has actually given up his general manager status here to be in this match. Adam Pearce is now officially the general manager of both brands. So I don't know if it's something they're likely to potentially go back on afterwards. Maybe, I don't know, they feel sorry for Nick after losing to Gunther. It's a hypothetical situation here, just what I'm explaining. And maybe they do sort of like reinstate him as a general manager afterwards. Sort of like looking at the bigger picture. I don't know. Maybe that's possible. Maybe it's not. But I do think that when it comes to the matchup itself here, they got a couple of ways they can go down here. They can either do the obvious thing and they can have Gunther defeat Nick Aldis. Nick hasn't wrestled in 3 years, never wrestled for WWE anyway. Obviously it was in other companies before arriving as a general manager on SmackDown. So a lot of the fan base probably haven't even seen him in ring action. So that's obviously something that's going to be very fresh to them, and a lot of eyes on Nick Aldis for the first time in a ring perspective in some time. So they can have Gunther beat the lesser experienced man at this particular point, or they could do something completely different. They could show Nick Aldis up. They've obviously got rid of his general manager status to be in this matchup, and they can actually have him provide a shock win over Gunther. That would then, provide him to be a member of the roster, I guess, as a superstar, maybe, if that's the way they're going about it. Again, I don't know if that's the direction. There's always a chance of, pivoting here and there, whatever, and maybe there's a clause or something that is hidden away, or, we've seen decisions be reversed so many times. He could end up as general manager again, by next Friday. Who the hell knows? But, I just think the logical choice is Gunther to win, honestly. That just makes most sense to me. You've got somebody who's in and around the WWE Championship position, someone that has been for some time now as well. And although losing to Nick Aldis isn't like the worst situation in the world, like you look back to like the Pat McAfee match, for example, if Gunther had lost to Pat, that's a whole lot of damage control that needs to be done. Losing to Nick Aldis isn't as bad as that. It's not anywhere in the same stratosphere, but it probably would sort of weaken, unfortunately, the sort of opinion of Gunther because of people's lack of exposure to Nick Aldis as an in-ring competitor. So I do think just for the pure protection of Gunther, I think him winning is the safer option here, which probably makes most sense in my opinion. But I'm just really interested. I want to see how this matchup goes. I'm keen for the afterwards because it's got a lot of different ways it can potentially end up. And obviously, I'm talking more Nick Aldis really more than Gunther here. He has a win here. He moves on. Surely that's just what happens. But Nick is the big question mark here, and I'm sort of like wondering what his future entails after this matchup. So yeah, I'm just gonna go with the safe option, Gunther to win. But what do you think, Nick? Do you agree with this? And also, what about the Aldis situations? Where does this go afterwards? It's got a couple of options, but what do you think is most likely?
Well, I do agree with you on a couple things, but I disagree with you on a couple things as well. The intrigue of this matchup is definitely there for me as well. To bring Nick Aldis out of retirement, quote unquote, his in-ring career, um, for the Ring General. It's WWE loves to book themselves into a corner. I really just don't see how you book anything else than Gunther to win. I agree with you that it would not be as big of a deal like having had lose to Pat McAfee. But I don't think it's super far away from that either, because obviously Nick Aldis hasn't been in the ring, I believe, I think they said for like 3 years or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But it's been a while, the point is here. And so for Nick Aldis to beat Gunther after the career killer has ended the likes of Goldberg, and AJ Styles, and John Cena, that feels like a pretty gigantic step down and a pretty big halt in momentum as well. Again, WWE has kind of booked this character in that way, so it is hard for him to have a match. It seemingly doesn't have huge implications. So, I think Gunther has to win here, but I don't get, why the match was kind of put into play in the first place, unless Nick Aldis is thinking about just leaving the company entirely, and this is kind of the way they write him off. Um, I actually don't want to see that. Like I said, I am intrigued to see Nick Aldis. I think he has a lot of the things already that kind of make a superstar. So, yeah, intrigue is definitely there for me. I just don't see a way that he wins unless he has a bunch of assistants here. For whatever reason, Mania and SummerSlam are the PLEs that WWE love to book, these kind of very unusual, strange, maybe sometimes like a celebrity. I much prefer this because at least he has a history and has a career in ring. So very intrigued as well. I just don't see a way that Gunther doesn't win here unless Nick Aldis just has a surefire way, a surefire plan up his sleeve, which if anyone was going to, it would make sense that it would be the former SmackDown GM has some favors to call. So yeah, definitely interested here. Hopefully it is made to be somewhat interesting and not just a straight squash match. But I wouldn't be super surprised either if that were to be the case. So with that, let's get into the next contest of the evening. And if you like 6-man, 6-woman tag matches, you're in luck because on night one we have 2 of those. This is the second one of the evening. We have Jimmy and Jay Uso with Jacob Fatu of the Bloodline 2.0, if you will, going up against LA Knight, Solo Sikoa, and Royce Keys. KB, this rivalry has seemingly been a bit of a slow burn one. And I'm not sure either team winning here really does much, but here we are at SummerSlam making it a big deal. What do you have being made of this one, and who do you have coming out on top?
Yeah, this one has been pretty slow burn. It felt like it's gone on for quite some time, and had gradual sort of developments here and there. Essentially setting the stage for this 3-on-3 tag team matchup. And I think this one is, I wouldn't say a win wouldn't do much for either team. I think a win wouldn't do much for Jimmy, Jay, and Jacob Fatu. Obviously, you do look at their relationship with Roman Reigns, obviously being part of this bloodline. This like new formation in the past few months. I think that with them winning this matchup, it sort of takes away 3 names that are potentially sniffing around stories to do with Roman and everybody else involved. If you have the likes of Royce Keys, LA Knight, and Solo Sikoa win this matchup, then obviously they take out the people most associated to Roman Reigns. And once Seth is done with Roman, or Roman's done with Seth, whatever, that sort of allows these 3 to maybe, like, I don't know, be boosted up on the pedestal a bit more, and just to have an opportunity maybe to have a case to go up against Roman at some point. I don't know how they'd work out from there, because obviously these guys are coming together to team up to face obviously the other 3 here, but maybe there's a way that afterwards, one of these 3 does get shot up in the limelight, and then we do get an opportunity for one of them to go after the World Heavyweight Championship. I don't know. It feels like if we don't have them win this match, you take away 3 names from that potential situation. And I don't think that's the right idea, in my opinion. So for Jimmy and Jade and Jacob to win, I just feel it's not the smartest of choices. Obviously, you do sort of like bring up the faction, and I understand that you raise their sort of stock as a group, but I think it's at the expense of too many names here that potentially could do something going forward. So, in my opinion, the best case scenario is that Keys, Knight, and Sikoa win, and then obviously they get whatever happens after that. So yeah, I don't like the other side of the coin. So I'm gonna go with Royce, LA, and Solo to get the win over the Usos and Jacob Fatu. But Nick, what do you think? You were sort of convinced maybe that actually it doesn't really matter which team wins this one. Do you not sort of like think that there's possibly an opportunity for one of these 3 to go after the championship afterwards, after defeating Roman's closest trio here?
Well, I suppose that when you put it that way, I just feel like if the Bloodline are to win or lose here, it's just going to be elevated to Roman anyways to come in and help dispose of the situation. And now that because I kind of separated Roman and Seth from this entire thing, because yes, the Bloodline has been mentioning Roman this whole time, but to my memory, which isn't great, I don't think that the 4 of them have been together against these 3 since this whole feud started. If they have, it was very brief and or a while ago. So yeah, I kind of separate those 2 things entirely. But the Bloodline losing here does feel like a pretty big deal for them as well. But then again, maybe then our next PLE is an 8-man tag match, including the likes of Roman and Seth. So that would not surprise me. That feels like kind of par for the course how this rivalry has been kind of transforming. But I will definitely agree to you that obviously it's a much bigger deal, I guess, for Keys, Knight, and Sikoa to win. 3 guys that could definitely use that win. Solo and LA Knight especially, who feel like they've been treading water for a very long time. But the intrigue is there for me. I just don't, in the grand scheme of things, I just don't know how much a win really help. Definitely would agree with you that it does help Keys, Knight, and Sikoa definitely more so. So yeah, I'm not confident in this one at all, though. I think they're the right team to win. That didn't necessarily, like we've talked about many times already in this night one video, definitely doesn't mean they're going to win. But I am looking forward to this matchup, though. I think it should be fun. But I do believe Keith Knight and Sikoa are the right team here. With that, let's get into the next contest of the evening. We saw the King of the Ring winner in action. Now we get to see the Queen of the Ring in action, excuse me. But unlike her counterpart, Io is actually cashing in on that opportunity. It's a great idea for her. She's going up against Liv Morgan for the Women's World Championship. KP, who you got coming out of this one?
Yeah, I heavily criticized the previous match between these two. At the Queen of the Ring final, I just didn't see the point in it taking place in the first place. Had so much of an illogical build to it, and just generally the outcome was so predictable on that occasion. Now we get a repeat of the matchup that happened then, and we get an opportunity for Io Sky to go on the double here against Liv Morgan. There's a couple of scenarios here that I played out in my head as to how this one could play out, and I don't know which one is more likely. In my opinion, you have Io Sky beat Liv Morgan. Do you really have her beat her twice? That is a big question here, because Liv hasn't defended her championship once in this entire reign. She's just hit 100 days ever since winning it back at WrestleMania against Stephanie Vicaire. And, she's obviously lost to Io Sky prior to this one, this being her first defense coming up at SummerSlam. So literally going from big PLE to big PLE with no defenses in between is quite something. So creative, I don't know what the situation is behind this, what the decision is, that why they can't just book a women's championship matchup. It's not the first time this has happened in the past couple of years. We saw Jade Cargill going through something very similar. Obviously, Rhea Ripley at the moment very much in an injured position, unable to defend her championship. So these women's titles, the lack of storytelling in terms of championship opportunities, it does sort of concern me, and it makes me sort of care less about these particular matches, because when you put such an illogical build into it, then that obviously just weakens it down as well. If Io had that match against Liv, at Queen of the Ring for just the championship itself, okay, this would have been a much different story. But we're going down this route here instead. I don't like the fact that, in my opinion, Io Sky could beat Liv Morgan twice in a row. Io's the better performer, 100%. She's my preferred superstar of these two. But I just don't think that does Liv Morgan any favors. It's been a pretty terribly booked run. Does she really lose it on her first offense against somebody that's already beat her? I don't know. That just doesn't scream out as a great choice to me. The only way that sort of can happen is, I think, in my opinion, is if Stephanie Vicaire comes back, and then we do have sort of Stephanie screwing over Liv Morgan to, pass that title on to Io, and then maybe they go on a feud afterwards. But I don't know. I think Steph will want her title back as well. So maybe it is just the fact that Liv Morgan beats Io in this matchup, and then afterwards we then have the return of Stephanie Vicaire. I would love to see something like that happen. It's just all a bit up in the air, just because of how badly it's been booked, this whole thing. So yeah, I don't know what is more likely. But I personally don't want to see Liv Morgan lose this match, because I don't think it does her any favors. She's meant to be the greatest women's world champion of all time. She hasn't defended it once. If she loses it on the first offense to Io Sky, what does that really say about her? It just sort of crosses off the entire gimmick that she's been playing out ever since she won the title back at WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble victory this year. It just sort of goes against all of it. So I personally don't think it does her any favors. I got to go with Liv Morgan to win, and then hopefully set up something decent afterwards. That would be nice, in my opinion. But that's just what I'm working with here. What about you then, Nick? Who have you got on this one? Liv against Io. What are your thoughts?
I wanted to correct your pronunciation of all time, but the state of my current voice, I just don't think will allow it. But it was kind of strange to hear her the other day cut a promo where she didn't, elongate the all time bit. This has been a poorly booked, for whatever reason, WWE has really taken the foot off the gas when it comes to pretty much all women. Make of that what you will, but obviously we are obviously not happy with that. Liv Morgan, I think, has made a huge improvement in her character's in-ring work. There was a time where she got that title way too early, and we you know for lack of a better word, we shit on that reign pretty heavily. She just wasn't quite ready yet. She's improved immensely since then, in pretty much every aspect of the game. But for whatever reason, they deemed this title to not need to be defended. And I understand there are a couple of injuries in the works, but that there are still plenty of opportunities where she should have been defending. And half the time she comes out, she's just a sidekick for the Judgment Day, and may or may not even have that title around her waist and or shoulder. So it's hard to take this match, be super invested in this match. Obviously, Io Sky is definitely kind of fits the bill as a fighting champion, and Liv Morgan is a heel. So, they don't typically want you to defend it as much, but you still have to defend if you want us to take the title seriously. And so I'm going to jump off my soapbox now. I love the idea of bringing back Vaquer, turn this into a triple threat match. I think that's immensely more interesting. Or Vaquer and Io, I love that idea as well. Or just Vaquer and Liv. I don't mind that idea. I just think for Io to win Queen of the Ring and then not to win here. Again, this is another instance of WWE booking themselves into a corner. I think the Judgment Day will absolutely come into play here. And I actually do want to see Liv Morgan win, which is crazy. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud against someone like Io Sky. But having Raquel win that Intercontinental Championship and then kind of allowing Liv to win this in a similar fashion where the other women get involved, and finally have the Judgment Day with dripped in gold once again, at least on the women's side, and we've been waiting to do that. I think that'll really kind of get under the skin of a lot of people. People are really going to be upset. Like, well, the only reason to have all these titles is because they cheat to do it. And so I think you have an opportunity to really elevate, especially the women's side of the Judgment Day that we haven't seen in quite some time. So this one is a tough decision, but I do think based on the defenses that Liv Morgan has had, or lack thereof, I think Liv Morgan does need to win to make sure that she remains a credible threat. I just don't see how you do that outside of making the Judgment Day get involved here. I do hope that Vaquer does come back and we can continue the feud there. So make of that what you will. I do think that Liv Morgan needs to win here. The main event of the evening has Cody Rhodes going up against CM Punk, who is defending the Undisputed WWE Championship. Obviously, we have lots of feelings behind this one as well. But KP, who do you have coming out of this one as champion of night one of SummerSlam?
Well, this one's difficult. It's difficult because I don't care, not even in the slightest. The build for this one, yeah, I disagree with on so many different levels, and obviously I can put personal bias aside. I can, just put it down to just these two having a match against each other, which actually was, wanted by a large majority of the fan base for quite some time. But just the way they've gone about it has been so absolutely skeptical. It doesn't make any sense. Like, the whole thing has just been butchered all along the way, in my personal opinion. Maybe people will disagree with that, and that's fine. That's completely okay. But just from my standpoint, it just hasn't built up to a match that's made me invested, care, or want to see somebody win in this one. This is one of the few matches in recent history that I've got two men involved here where I literally don't care who wins because it doesn't matter. It really has no effect on this whole situation. You've got one of WWE's five guys against another one of WWE's five guys. And in terms of, the result afterwards, what does it matter? It still stays in that little bubble. So, yeah, I struggle to really just see a point to, theorize this one, because at the end of the day, these two are chosen by WWE at the moment. They're in that inner circle, and it just stays amongst it no matter what happens. So, yeah, Punk's just won the title. So I guess, in that sort of understanding, Cody has had the belt for a lot longer recently. He's been more in that position, especially the WWE Championship, that is anyway. So it would be better to have him take a step back and, have him removed from the conversation for a little while. But it's Cody. What are they going to do to him to make him step away from that one? I don't know. Let's say Punk wins, sure, all right, but then what do you do with Cody afterwards? He'll probably just, politic his way back into another match at some point very soon. And I can't see this stepping away from here after this. It's just tunnel vision for me. Like, it's just a pure block of interest, and I don't want it to be like that. I want to enjoy the WWE Championship picture, but when it's something that you just care so little about, it's so hard to be invested in it properly. And when you get a situation like this where you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, it's just picking the lesser of two evils. I don't think there is one genuinely in this matchup. So yeah, it's just a complete mental issue for me. I'm just gonna say Punk because he's only won the championship very recently, and Cody has been in that position for a long time. So take a step back. I don't know how they're gonna do it. Do I care? Not particularly. So let's just see what happens. Punk to win. I'm just gonna go with that. Nick, can you show some more enthusiasm potentially in this one? Who do you think is going to win? And have you got some solid, backup evidence to support that?
Over here thinking, you need to calm down, KP. I'm not sure I can match your energy. This is a very predictable, unfortunately. WWE obviously knows they wanted some big marquee names to headline main event night 1 and night 2 of SummerSlam. They've kind of done a similar route to both, unfortunately. If you love, these two guys, great, that's great. But just don't love the way. And this is, I'm not as biased, but I'm still pretty upset about how they went about doing this whole thing. And Sami Zayn isn't my favorite, so that's I know that plays a big part here, and I'm sure it does for a lot of people as well. This match didn't need a title; it really didn't. This match could have gone on, just the same without it. I think honestly, I would have been more intrigued if it wasn't for a title. So, yeah, I would not be surprised. This is kind of the ultimate thing, right? Cody Rhodes doesn't really lose, and I think since I believe I saw a stat that said he hasn't lost at SummerSlam since returning. So, does Cody pick up his first loss here against CM Punk? I I would be kind of shocked, honestly. I don't see a world where Cody shouldn't win here. CM Punk shouldn't really have the title. So make of that what you will. Don't worry, we have a number one contendership match to talk about tomorrow evening to kind of boost into this rivalry. But yeah, for this here, I think CM Punk winning seems pretty lackluster. Honestly, I'd prefer to put the belt back on Cody because I like Cody more than Punk, but in the current state, I don't love either of these guys being in this opportunity. So make of that what you will. I do think it should be a good match. I think the crowd will be super invested into it, probably more so than they should. But I would prefer, and I think it makes more sense to have Cody win here. Punk, it doesn't really need a title. You could argue neither of them do, but I think just personal preference, honestly, is what I'm boiling it down to. Cody Rhodes to win here. But SummerSlam Night 1, KP, just in general, how are you feeling about the card overall as a whole? Which matches are you looking forward to? Which match do you think could be sleeper match of the evening? And yeah, we'll get this one wrapped up for SummerSlam Night 1.
I think there are some options here on the card that do allow them to have that sort of like sleeper maybe description to it. I mean, I'm not saying this is sleep potential, but I really am interested in Gunther and Nick Aldis. I just am truly fascinated to see what they're going to do with that one. That to me is the most up in the air and the most sort of like intriguing of the options to me. So with the number of options you can go from there, just naturally gravitating towards that one, just like theorizing in my head how they're going to play it. It's quite cool for me to think about what could happen from there. There are some matches that I am looking forward to. I'm looking forward to seeing Fatal Influence and the Bellas and Paige, purely for, the fact that, in my opinion, that's got a really big, important part to it going on afterwards. So again, hoping for a good result there. Could this be the last match of Brock Lesnar? Hey, look, we're both hoping so. So this could be quite the night if that does go down the way that we want it to, with Overheavy winning. Yeah, I just think that there are some situations that maybe I'm not as interested in, but it's got some ups and downs throughout the course of the night. Liv and Io should be a good match, but obviously, it's just one of those things that it's hard to really sort of like get it too invested in because of how badly it's been booked up until this point. And that sort of goes the same as well as Cody and Punk as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag, honestly, this one, but I think as a general, the show should be pretty decent, but just hoping that it's going to not be the WrestleMania presentation, but maybe more of the Saturday, maybe more of the Night of Champions presentation that we got back in Saudi Arabia. So just thought that show was delivered a bit more, in terms of like not lack of ads, but like sort of like more content outside of the ads as well. So I want to see more like that, but it depends on what we get on the night. Obviously, it's all very up in the air, but I think it should be a decent evening, though. What about you, Nick? What are you looking forward to? Highs, lows here, expectations for the night, and general thoughts about how it could go down?
Well, similar to you, I think my expectations are fine. You know, they're not super high. It doesn't feel like a SummerSlam card to me, honestly. You have two six-man, six-woman tag matches on there. I think both of those are intriguing. I think both could be fun, but to have two of those on there, it is a choice. The card is intriguing. The outcomes there are, has us thinking. I'm not super confident in a lot of them, but in terms of just like on paper, do any of these matches jump off as, could be, five-star classics? Honestly, not really. There's not really a match on here that I think has potential to be a five-star classic. If I had to choose one, though, yeah, I probably would go with Io and Liv. I think Liv is obviously, as we already alluded to, is massively due for a good showing in ring. But that doesn't generally tend to be how things go for the Judgment Day. So we'll have to wait and see. Cody and Punk, given enough time, yeah, I think could potentially be that way. As much as we don't like the booking, they're still, in that position for a reason. So, yeah, I think those two are probably the most likely. It definitely won't be Oba and Brock. I can tell you that for sure. Um, but I think night two does look better from an in-ring perspective. But we'll wait until we get to night two tomorrow to kind of compare the two and see which one we are kind of more so looking forward to. We'll do that one tomorrow. So that is it here for night one of SummerSlam. What do you make of the card? Let us know in the comments below which matches you're most looking forward to and your outcomes. We'd love to hear your predictions for night one as well as we work into the weekend. But if you like what we're putting out here as well, please let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button as well. We'll be back with night two predictions tomorrow. But until the next time, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you soon. Take care.